Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fifth and final installment in our 2021 panel discussion series, hashtag You Go Girl, organized by the Ministry of Sports and Community Development as part of the Pink Rain campaign. Yes, I said our final installment. Over the past few months, we've had a very exciting and engaging discussions with many leading and well established women from various aspects of the sports industry. Our goal was to raise awareness and increase our understanding in some of the critical issues that face women and girls in sport in Trinidad and Tobago today. And I hope that over the last few months, we've certainly kept you engaged. I promise you that for our final session today, we've put together quite a great conversation with three very interesting young women. But before we get into the discussion, I would like to turn it over now to invite the Minister of Sport and Community Development, the Honorable Shamfa Kajoo, to share her thoughts on the Pink Rain campaign and our panel discussion series and any upcoming activities.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duke Westfield. Hearty good afternoon to everyone. I want to firstly recognize our Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, Ms. Angela Edwards, our panelist this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us, Ms. Shanice Allen, athlete and entrepreneur, Dr. Tonya Welsh, sport and exercise medicine practitioner, Miss Chantal Ross Thomas, founder of Fire Fitness, all you wonderful ladies out there who have been tuning in over the past 4 months and those who are with us for the first time today, along with the gentlemen who are following, members of the media. If you're in, good afternoon and welcome. I'm really pleased to join this afternoon's session, and I think I must first and foremost say thank you to everyone who has done their part to make this initiative a success. The whole vision of promoting women and girls in sport and encouraging women and girls to participate, to get up and claim their space in sport and sport development. We've managed, even against the backdrop of these turbulent and uncertain times facing the COVID pandemic and having to do these sessions from the comfort of our homes. I think a blessing in disguise, because some people who wouldn't have supported or gotten the opportunity to participate have gotten the chance to. We've had speakers from far and wide throughout the world to participate in this session of this initiative. So I must say, looking at where we are and the distance, the journey we've traveled over the past couple months, I must say that I'm very pleased. Today is our fifth and final installation of our Pink Rain You Go Girl panel discussion series, and today we are looking at money moves, so entrepreneurship and business development through sport, showing that there are opportunities in all areas of sport for women, encouraging us to see sport as an income generator, as a wealth creator, and as a tool for entrepreneurship and economic empowerment, not just for men, but also for women too. Over the last 4 months, we have been honored to have exceptionally talented and fearless female trailblazers lead insightful and impactful discussions over a variety of pertinent topics. We examined non-communicable diseases, diet, exercise, mental health, the development of different sporting disciplines, and what we can do as government, as national governing bodies, coaches, administrators, to make the environment or make the sporting ecosystem more conducive to women and girls, to encourage their participation, and not just their participation but their excellence, their success, allowing them to climb the ladder of athletic excellence. So we've been pleased to have some pretty outstanding and engaging facilitators or presenters over the past 4 months, and they have expertly demonstrated that women can conquer any part of this industry. To date, this Hugo Girl panel or discussions have touched over 20,000 people through our online discussions, and I am confident that today we are going to have that sharpened interest also. In reiterating the significance of today's session, I want to refer to the United Nations Women's Stance on Economic Empowerment. Women's economic empowerment is central to realizing women's rights and gender equality. It includes women's ability to participate equally in existing markets, their access to and control over productive resources, access to decent work, control over their own time, lives, and bodies, and increased voice, agency, and meaningful participation in economic decision making at all levels, from the household to international institutions, and might I add, from the playing field or the track all the way to the boardroom of the sporting institution. We've seen far and wide, and even most recently, women in basketball make their claim and claim their space for equal work, equal pay. And the struggle continues throughout the world, where not just the athletes, but women in sport are seeking equal rights and recognition, and exploring new ways and avenues to get to generate income and economic empowerment through sport. So sport has been viewed as a path to achieving and sustaining equitable female participation in society. It's a vital tool for economic progression for all women. When women are empowered, families thrive, which leads to prosperous communities and nations. Your stories, all three of you, and all the other women who intend to share, will inspire our emerging leaders to cultivate a mindset of success in this sporting industry and to become more financially empowered, showing women and girls that there is room for you at every level in sport. This will contribute to our nation's development goals for women and girls enshrined in our government's Vision 2030. So, in closing, I want to thank you, all of you, all the panelists who are here with us today, those who have participated in the past, and all the women who have shared their beautiful stories over the past 4 months. I want to thank you all for devoting your time, your expertise, and sharing your experiences in these critical sessions. Some girl, some woman, somewhere be encouraged to get up and and work out, to exercise, to participate in sport, and to hang in there after puberty, before and after having a child, all the different obstacles that we face as women, and to claim more space at the leadership levels in the sporting industry. So to our panelists today, to Mrs. Nicole Duke Westfield, who have been our host for the past 4 months, you've performed outstandingly well, and we hope to have you back again for more of our programs. We continue to promote women and girls in sport, working with the national governing bodies, encouraging women to participate in our road races. Right now we are doing the Pink Rain campaign, Girls Run TT Challenge, where we have hundreds of girls out there running 70 miles. The end date is September 30th, so if you're not on board yet, get on board and be a part of this exciting campaign. So thank you for going the distance with us and being a part of this journey, and may we continue, even as these panel sessions end, may we continue to encourage and inspire women to claim their rightful place in leadership, in sport, on the track, on the field, all the way to the boardroom, creating more room for other women to rise and grow in the sporting environment. So I bid you every success and a very productive session today. May God bless you, may God bless our nation, and may we continue to encourage and empower women in sport. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for those really inspiring and engaging words. And I think, it's important as well to acknowledge the Minister's, in addition to acknowledging her words and some of the important points that she raised, but also to acknowledge her own efforts and that of her team at the ministry in championing, this very important area of encouraging women, young girls and women, to pursue their dreams in sport and in the sports sector across all aspects. All aspects of sport. It's not just about being an elite athlete, it's about being in business, in administration, in management, in coaching. I think it's very important for us to continue to have these conversations. And over the last few months, I think we have really put together, as the minister pointed out, a series of discussions to stimulate the mind, to encourage greater thought, and maybe to encourage more discussion, certainly to inspire young women who may be thinking about making certain moves but are not quite sure. They don't know where to turn or they don't know who to turn to. And hopefully we've been able to really bring some sort of excitement and engagement to these to young women. And as we move, I mean, as the minister said, today we are talking about money moves, entrepreneurship and business development. Yes, there is a host of opportunities for women in the entrepreneurial space, in the business development space in sport. And I'm really pleased today that we've been able to invite and have participating with us three young women who are charting their own course in different ways in sports, in the sport industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me just take the opportunity to introduce them now, and then we can get into the really exciting part, which is the conversation. So I'd first like to start with Dr. Tonya Welch. Tonya has studied sport and exercise medicine, and she has worked with several athletes across multiple sports, including track and field, football, tennis, rugby, and gymnastics at the national, regional, and international events. She has served as the Trinidad and Tobago team doctor for several competitions, including the Pan American Games and the Rio Olympics in 2016. With her wealth of experience, Dr. Welch is passionate about promoting wellness and healthy lifestyles among her clients. So welcome to you, Tonya. My next guest today is Shanice Allen, who is the captain of the National Women's Beach Handball team. But with her degree in sports science, she had plans to become a physical therapist. That dream, according to Shanice, had been put on hold just for a little while, but it hasn't slowed her down one bit because she's a very busy CEO currently running 3 businesses. So we're going to find out from her in just a little bit how she gets all of that done in one day and hopefully get some sleep at the end of it. And then rounding off our panel today is Chantal Ross Thomas. Chantal's face might be familiar for many things, mainly swimming. She is a former national swimmer, and as I understand, she still holds a couple national age group records in the water. But today, you're more likely to see Chantal organizing sporting events in her hometown of Arima under her company, Fire Fitness, a company that is dedicated to using sport and fitness as tools to develop people and communities. Ladies, welcome to the program today. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. When we met on Monday, we had a very lively talk about your own personal journeys, as well as some of the challenges and experiences that you've had gathered along the way. And I really hope that we can kind of bring that to the fore. So if I can get right into it, Tonya, perhaps we could start with you, and you could share with us maybe what led you to decide to become an entrepreneur.
Of course. So first of all, good afternoon to the Minister as well as the staff at the Ministry of Sports and Community Development and everybody who's been part of this amazing project. Congratulations and thank you so much for having me be a part of it. So my story might be a little bit abnormal in that I was not an athlete per se, but sport and exercise always was a huge part of my life. What happened naturally was the fact that I went into medicine. I came from a background of a lot of doctors, and it just seemed like the natural path for me because I was good at science, and I just did what I wanted to do at the age of 17 and what felt right. But there was always the background of, you know, I swam competitively until the age of 14. I played tennis as well competitively, and I had several members of my family be part of national teams in different sports. So, I mean, at the age of 17, I was still confused about life, as many of us often are. And I still did what I felt was right at that time, and I just did medicine because I enjoyed it. Later on, at some point in time, I realized that being in the hospital was maybe not necessarily for me. There was a lot about it that was difficult. And not because I didn't know how to work hard or how to work in difficult systems, but I'm the type of person that if you put me in a situation, I'm going to speak out and I'm going to say, this isn't right, let's do this, let's change that. And I just started to become exhausted by just all the barriers that I felt that people were putting in the way of ourselves. Because yes, we have limited infrastructure, but I think as a human resource, we could be stronger as people to make the best of what we have and to change it together rather than depending on somebody else to change it. Anyway, I kind of exited myself out of public care for a little bit. And in doing so, I met a lot of sports people. I used to be at these sides of the pitch, just kind of sitting there. And eventually I met someone who was like, well, why don't you try sports medicine? So becoming an entrepreneur wasn't exactly what I had planned. But what happened was I realized that my passion lied in educating people to live the best life that they could live in terms of health, wellness, fitness, particularly as it relates to athletes, to young adults, to just anyone. So I've done it. And when you're passionate about something, you literally wake up in the morning with an idea and you're like, I have to get this done. And you just go and go and go until you get it done. So that is what entrepreneurship means for me. It means that the passion just kind of, the fire just burned inside me and I decided that I needed to do this. So there are a few projects I've done along the way. There was my Fit Girl campaign where I tried to educate girls about, and just as Minister said in her introduction speech, things like having our periods, having children, having all the difficulties we go through as women should empower us and make us stronger to make decisions to become fit and well, just through education that can help us. So that was what Fit Girl was about. I also did some other things along the way, but most recently I started a television series called What's Up Doc, which is just designed entirely to do that, to educate particularly athletes, women, people about sport and about medicine. So I literally combine all my passions into one. And I guess now I'm starting to become an entrepreneur, which is not really where I started, where my heart was a long time ago. So all that just to say that sometimes entrepreneurship just happens, and it happens based on just living the life that you design for yourself, based on your passions and based on what makes you feel fulfilled and grow and allows you to grow.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting journey, Tonya. And I think there are a lot of people who, may have fallen into entrepreneurship, for want of a better term, not necessarily seeing themselves there when they started out, but certainly circumstances led them to that place, to that journey. And it's quite interesting the way you sort of walked, took the steps to boldly do that, because sometimes, not everyone is going to take such bold steps at a young age as well to kind of go there. Chantal, I was wondering if that experience was the same for you. Did you always have that sort of niggling entrepreneurial spirit in the back of you, and also was it fairly seamless or challenging to shift from, let's say, athletes into businesswoman and CEO?
All protocols observed. Good afternoon to everyone, the viewership. For me, it really wasn't that much of a transition because I was still in the same industry that I loved, right? I'm moving from an athlete, but I'm still in sport. My minor is in business. My major is in sport management. So for me, I always knew I wanted to be in business. I do feel to some extent like Tonya that I was pushed into this particular direction. Basically, I was working in an organization and I felt like I wanted to contribute more, but wasn't really given the opportunity. Simultaneously, while that was taking place, I was beginning to start my family and I became pregnant. And on that journey of wanting to be fit through my pregnancy, I had a very difficult time in East Trinidad finding a trainer that wanted to work with a pregnant woman. So that is literally how Fire Fitness was born. It was really for pre and postnatal fitness classes. And then, other women wanted to join because it was a nice intimate space and they wanted to get away from the grunting men in the gym. So it kind of provided that privacy for them and that camaraderie around women. Um, so that's how that started. Then I challenged the women to a 5K event. And then what happened from that, they wanted to continue running and we formed a running group that grew organically as well. Men decided they wanted to join in. That became a unisex group. And then we branched out into the community and started having running events. So everything just unfolded organically for me. And that's where Fire Fitness is today. We now host the biggest 5K event in Arima. We also partnered with the Ministry of Education to have a children's career fair and 3K and 5K event as well. The Women's Studio now has an app due to COVID. So that's where we are on our journey through entrepreneurship.
Quite interesting. It's you raise something there that you almost never think about. As a pregnant woman, can you find a trainer who would be willing to work with you through the pregnancy? I mean, I remember when I was pregnant. Gosh, I'm not going to call it how long ago that was, right? But it did happen, and at the time there was a lot of caution to me because I was fairly active then. And it was, well, you can't do spin again, and you have to wait until after you can't overheat your body. The term was overheat your body. So the information, I think, might discourage people from doing it. And I think it's interesting that you were able to build a network, not just in addition to the business, but build a network where women could find a space that they could operate in. I want to turn over to you, Shanice, and maybe get a sense of how you came into this space. Your intention was to go into one area. You're not, you haven't gone into that area yet, but now you find yourself running 3 businesses. It begs the question, how? And the other question is why.
Okay, well, good evening to everyone. For me, I always liked working with people. However, I don't like working for people. So that alone would tell you, well, this is the reason why I would get into my own business. While I like the security of an 8 to 4, I always prefer to believe in having your own and using your talents and making it work for you. So this is how, well, I started my massage therapy. I remember when I was younger, my grandmother always had neck pains and whatnot, and I would rub her neck, right? And the relief that she would get from that, I enjoyed seeing that. Not knowing a couple of years later, I would actually get into massage therapy. It's something I enjoy doing. I like seeing people after when they get their massage and the feeling that they have after that. I absolutely enjoy. Um, Apart from the massage, I am a person, I like to try new things. So I like working with my hands. This is where my crochet business comes in. And a lot of you may think crochet, that's for like old people. But I like to try new things. And I had a friend, she always used to say, Shanice, you could try this. And I was like, no, that's not for me. That's not my type of thing. But I did. I did try it, and within 2 weeks, I had my first customer asking for me to make something for them, and I just kept going with the crochet and massage. I kept it. However, uh, coming into this whole COVID situation, now people would order crochet to go out. We can't go anywhere, so that went dead. Massage therapy, of course, nobody wants you to touch them at that time, right? It's COVID, nobody wants you to touch them, stay far. So that definitely was outdoor for the past 2 years. So I decided, well, I need to find something else to bring in that income. And this is where I went into my printing business, my t-shirt printing business. So, yes, I am a jack of all trade, a master of none. However, it's better than a master of one, right? So this is the reason I have these three businesses. They are all on its way to success, and yeah.
Yeah. And I think, obviously you have to be commended, I think, for thinking on your feet and being able to innovate in difficult times, which is something that we talked about at our initial conversation. And I do want to get into that whole area of mental health and just trying to maintain your sanity in a lot of ways as you go through this. But as you raise that question, Shanice, on having to kind of change, I wanted to really explore a little bit more the concept of the pivot, which is the popular little word that people have been using over the last 2 years during COVID. Most people have had to pivot in terms of what they're doing. Entrepreneurs in particular, you start off in one space. That's not happening for you. COVID has kind of shut down what what might have been happening for you in terms of your client base, and you're looking at something else. Chantal, how have you, I guess is the question, how have you had to pivot? If we use that word in terms of your own business, doing the 5K, working with women, what are some of the things that you've had to do in terms of being able to pivot your business to be able to still be viable and active?
Luckily for me, entering the virtual landscape was something that I've always wanted to do. I've been kept back a little bit in doing that in terms of understanding our culture in Trinidad. So thanks to COVID, it allowed me to push forward in the areas that I wanted to go into, the spaces, I should say, that I wanted to go into. So for me, in terms of the fitness business, yes, we had the intimate space of the studio, and now I've been able to create an app, still allowing women to have that intimate space and train, etc. So in that regard, we pivoted online. With regards to the event space, there is the virtual events that everybody's doing now. However, it's not something that I fell in love with. So I've decided to kind of put events on the back burner for now and just, focus really on the app and developing that and progressing with that, while doing some background planning for when events are able to open back up.
Okay. Antonio, what about you? How was the pandemic? The pandemic caused you to maybe change your approach in terms of your business and your business structure?
So even before the pandemic, I think things were a little bit difficult in the world of sports medicine, because, oftentimes resources are limited, and the type of expertise I provide is very specific. And the way I work with athletes would be from the beginning of their journey all the way to the end, which would mean I need to know what you eat, how you eat, what injuries you had when you were 10. I need to do a full evaluation. And if I'm not able to do that within the environment, I find it very difficult to work. I did do it though. For example, I worked with the women's national team on their way to the World Cup in 2016. And I did do it then, and I had a fantastic time. We brought together this team and we almost made it to the World Cup. as a team together. But it still was a little difficult for me not to have the structure that I needed. I think the structure is there now, but there are other reasons that things have changed a little bit for me. So I went back into public care, which I still am in now. And what happened for me during the pandemic was that I was exposed to a lot of COVID positive patients. I mean, we've been sent around to work in different places, and I've been to the COVID ICU. I've been to all these different places, and I've seen the impact of COVID firsthand. Now, that made me realize that I needed to hold on to my passion even more to get some strength. And just looking at some of these people suffer, I said, I have to continue to create platforms to educate people about health, educate people about giving themselves the best fighting chance to fight disease. And that's how things changed for me during the pandemic a little bit. So that's how I started the show. I started the Instagram page, and I decided that even though it did not have any monetary value right now, this is what I wanted to do. So things switched around for me during the pandemic. And during that time as well, while I was sitting with these ill patients, I just got the fire again to say, okay, how do I help athletes on this journey towards being as fit and as well as they possibly can? Not only just treating injuries, but teaching them how to get their bodies, which is their instrument, to the best optimum position that they could possibly get it at.
Yeah, I as I listen to you talk, I imagine that it must have been, it continues to be, I would say, quite a harrowing experience to be working in that environment. I have a very good friend of mine who who did, test positive for COVID and has gone through the experience of also long COVID. And one of the things that he has said and he has described is he was a very active person pre-COVID, and just going through that experience of not even being able to, just to simply get up and walk around his house. That's, I think that had a really profound effect on him. And to really understand how people are impacted through illness, it is a very critical thing, and particularly as I pointed earlier, the question of mental health. So to now be, I guess, emboldened to say, I really do have to pursue this dream, this love in my own space, I think is something that is really commendable. I want to also touch on the question of support systems, where you get your support, both as, a lot of the women who've been on previous panels, when we talk about the question of support, you hear a lot about familial support, and, friends and family, and building that network. I think for entrepreneurs in particular, there's also the question of more structured organizational type, to some extent, state support, if you're able to access that. So I wanted to really ask, and maybe Chantal, start with you. Where were you able to access the support you needed to build your business, to start your business?
Okay. Basically, I sought out mentors. I surrounded myself with other business people. I wanted to get ideas from them. I realized there were things that I knew and things that I didn't know. And, you kind of have to put the ego aside and humble yourself and say, I don't know. So that's where I got my support from, mentorship, and, just building my network with more business people.
Yeah. Shanice, what about you? You've kind of been walking, some pretty interesting steps so far, in terms of building out your various aspects of your business. Where have you been able to find your support network?
For me, it's definitely, we talk about family. I have to definitely put my family first. That's my strongest support system, right? My family and my loved ones, they are the persons that are with me throughout everything. They keep me sane. Apart from that, I have a lot of friends who are business persons. They are entrepreneurs just as myself, and they drive me probably without even knowing. My friends who have businesses, they drive me. I mean, support from like governments and whatnot. I don't do that as yet. I haven't been getting any support from the government as yet. But like the persons that are close to me, they are my strongest support system.
You know, Chantal, I want to take it back to you just for a little bit. You focused on your community, you know, building your business within your particular community. Has that been a great support for you in terms of how you've developed and grown your business?
Yes, I think it definitely has contributed to my success. I've gotten support from the Borough Corporation, local businesses in the area, and the community itself. That has definitely motivated me to keep pushing, seeing and getting feedback from people as well to make sure I'm tailoring what I'm doing to their needs so that it is successful.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you were recognized by the Borough Corporation, if I am correct, for your business. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like.
Um, well, it was really about us hosting our last 5K in 2019 before the pandemic hit. Um, we grew our race to about 540 participants. We had international participants from Cyprus, Poland, Kenya. They all came to Arima. I don't even know how they heard about our event because we actually did not do any international marketing at that point in time. It was really local marketing and trying to grow the base in Trinidad and Tobago. Um, so that's what really took place. We became the biggest race in Arima, and then the data showed that we became the second largest race in the East-West corridor. And that was a big deal because in distance running fraternity right now, there are over 200 events. So to place number 2 was kind of a big deal.
Congratulations to you on that. Tanya, in addition to your, apart from your family, because I know you talked, I did talk about coming from, a doctor family per se, or medical, where medicine was maybe a natural, might have been considered a natural path. In addition to your family support, where else have you found effective support groups or among friends or other networks that have really helped you along the way?
Shanice and Chantal, I would not be anywhere close to where I am without my family. So, I mean, apart from medicine, just everything that I've decided, I wake up with these crazy ideas and they just sit back silently and then they say, okay, I guess we'll see how this one plays out. But they've always been supportive through the entire path. But what has been important for me is having a team. I've always said that I have the most amazing friends. And when I say friends, I have the group of friends that I've grown up with since I was younger. A couple of friends, maybe a group of 5 girls. But I'm talking about people I've met along the way who are like-minded. And people who are 10 years older than me, 10 years younger than me, 20 years older than me, 15 years younger than me. I have this little team where we just throw ideas at each other. So just like Shanice was saying, you kind of like-minded people tend to just fall into groups together. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would just message one of my friends and I would be like, hey, we're doing this. What do you think about this? And he would be like, yeah, let me know when, how, who you need. So we would just, you just throw around these ideas and then by the next 2 weeks, you have, okay, let's do this instead. Let's add this person. Let's add this person. You know this person. You call that. And none of this is for any money. We make no money out of it. We hope that at some point, we have to live, right? So we hope at some point that we start to get financial gain out of these things. But the important part for me was building a team of people along the way that were like-minded. And especially the people ahead of me who could be my mentors, as Chantal said, because I've been to people who've shown me, this is the best way to do this. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try this instead? And you really cannot. You can't live as an island. The most important thing to do, you have to have support, because there's no way that you could do things on your own. You might look at somebody on social media or on the television, you'd be like, oh God, this person is so amazing. I don't know how they do it. They don't do it alone. Whoever it is, they don't do it alone. And I think the most important thing is to build a team.
Yeah. Well said. I think that, sometimes we underestimate those groups, cliques, even your WhatsApp group that you reach out to every day. You have a group of friends on WhatsApp. There's always there's always the one person who will send the morning prayer and just kind of get you kicked in and get you started. And there's someone who will crack the ones who will crack the jokes. And those, even those groups, as simple as they may sound, when you're in a space where you are creative, generating ideas, working for yourself, those are the groups that really do, very helpful and supportive. So I think it's really good that you can tap in. It's useful when you can tap into those groups of people who you can share your ideas with, and they can also generate other ideas for you. And, as well, they're also the ones who will tell you, well, I don't know if that'll quite work today, but maybe we need to look at it, So I hear you loud and clear when you talk about, those networks. I just want to remind our audience, those of you tuning in to us today, that of course you can send in your questions and comments. Please feel free to send your questions and comments in via the ministry's Facebook page, as we're live right now. I know our panel, we'd love to hear from you all and really just to have a chat and maybe raise some of the questions, some of the things that are foremost in your mind. If I could move on and really get into maybe some more of the practical aspects of business, there is that creative side, the entrepreneurship side. There's also the athlete side, if you like Chantal and Shanice. But once you step into the entrepreneurial space, a lot of people who are described as entrepreneurs, business leaders, company leaders. There is also the more practical, sometimes maybe even the more mundane side of it. Who's going to handle your accounts? Who's going to deal with the legal aspects, or getting things done through the company's registry? I wanted to maybe tap into what are some of those. How have you all been able to manage some of those more practical aspects in terms of putting your business together? Did you find the help that you needed when you needed it? Was there a particular, government website or company or particular website that you were able to go to that gave you that kind of direction? Shanice, maybe we could start with you. As you've set up your 3 businesses, where did you find that kind of support?
Okay, so as a small business owner, and when I say small, I mean small, we are still on our way, right? As a small business owner, all of everything is done by me. So yes, I have my businesses registered, of course, but all other aspects is done by me. So I manage the finances, accounting, and whatnot. Everything is done by me. I obviously have plans of expanding and having that type of help persons for legal reasons and things that I may need in future. But as for now, I am the only person that manages everything when it comes to the 3 businesses.
Okay. Chantal, what about you in terms of, did you have to would you have had to hire an accountant, get legal advice, even in setting up your company logo, trademarking, and that kind of thing? Were those steps easy for you as you walked through them?
I started off like Shanice as well, where everything is just myself, but soon you realize just how valuable time is. Time is money. So in certain instances, I would outsource certain things. I wouldn't necessarily have those people on my payroll permanently, but if there's a particular service that I need, I would outsource it. As well as I said, I rely on my group, my network of business people. So we tend to lump certain things together. So if we know somebody has to make a trek to Ministry of Legal Affairs for annual returns, etc., and it's around the same time, we'll have one person lump and do everybody's own, that kind of thing. And that's the kind of support I'm talking about from your network.
Right. Yeah. I find that interesting that you can connect and connect with others and pull that together. Tonya, was it the same for you? Has it been the same experience for you where this is concerned?
Well, it's a little bit different in terms of how my business, so to speak, would work, because I had to create a private practice out of medicine. So I've had to reach out to different types of doctors in terms of how do you start a private practice, what are the rules that you need. I've had to go to the medical board just to establish in terms of what guidelines do I need to follow when it comes to private practice. But like both Shanice and Chantal, it's been sort of me alone. I mean, at some points in time, I can afford a secretary, but at other times I can't. And I'm sitting in the middle of the hospital answering phone calls on the side of the desk. Sure, I'll see you next week. Let me give you a call back. And like the octopus, just having 8 hands, just trying to balance everything. And then there are times where I can afford to have somebody help me for 3 months. But that's just how it goes. It just varies as to, and hopefully one day I'll have an established company whereby I have permanent staff who can help me and help build this brand and this business to be permanently supporting itself.
Yeah, it is I guess a lonely road at the top end, because it is your dream that you're really trying to put together, and who better but you to kind of see that dream, shape the dream the way you want it. But it's also good when you can tap into your network and to get the kind of support like Chantal has described, and like both you and Shanice have described. And I think a lot of people who are getting into or thinking about this area, getting into entrepreneurship, thinking about starting out, for themselves, these are some of the things that they do need to think about. Chantal, I wanted to maybe ask you, and maybe take it out to Tonya and Shanice afterwards as well. What do you think might have been your greatest challenge in setting up your business? Was there a particular reason?
I don't really think I had a challenge per se in setting up the business. But once the business got running, I think I encountered cultural challenges because, I studied and trained in the US, so it's very commercial based. Everything is commercialization and business, etc. And then I come back home and we're a little bit more laid back, particularly when it comes to sport, because we still think sport is a hobby. So my challenges have more so been on the cultural side, not necessarily the setting up of the business per se.
Yeah. Did any of you feel or experience same kind of cultural challenges or cultural realities? Tonya, I see you smiling.
Definitely, 100%. It took me years to get back into the yeah, I'll call you back tomorrow. We'll figure out something. And I'm just like, no, we won't figure out something. You're doing this now. But I mean, the bigger challenge for me, and I'm going to be completely honest, is that I'm a woman. That has been every door I've opened so far. That has been my biggest challenge. I'll be completely honest with you. Even in the world of sports medicine, I even see now that some of the doctors who are in charge or controlling are all men. And that's fine because some of them are actually qualified to be doing what they're doing. But there are times when I'm like, some aren't. And just because you're a man doesn't make you qualified. And this is no disrespect to any man. But I think that I have the same qualifications as some of the people who make decisions and control the world of sports medicine and that kind of thing. And apart from sports medicine, actually staying on sports medicine for a second, just creating my practice, most athletes are men. Most professional athletes are men. I have had many women, but I also have men. You initially have the phase where the man walks into the office and he looks at you, and you get this kind of double take. You get they're looking all over the place like, well, am I in the right place? And you have to prove yourself before you even start seeing the person. And I've always had that disadvantage. Even up to this day, like, even in public healthcare, the patient will be like, okay, so when is the doctor coming to do my procedure? And I'm like, I just introduced myself as a doctor 5 minutes ago, and I still am. 5 minutes later, I still am. And they're like, so you're actually going to do it. And I mean, even women do it. We do it to each other, because there's no way a young woman could be professional enough to do this job, because this is a man's job. And that has been my biggest challenge in every aspect of my life, even in when I do media or hospital or sports medicine, athletes, wherever the table is, the first reaction is, okay, hi, it's never like, okay, this is this person and she's coming to do the job. And I have to take a big chunk out of my time to prove myself first. And I've stopped doing that, actually. I have this new approach where I'm like, you will eventually realize if I'm the person for you or not. And I think that we need to start making room for women at the table and stop assuming that because somebody is young or because they're a woman or because whatever perception you have of them, that they cannot do the job just as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad that, it's great that you raised that, because I think that has been, and yes, and I see everybody smiling now, because I think that has been an experience that a lot of us have had. It's in two streams. It's the question of, there's the ageism part of it, where someone is either maybe too young to be an expert in a particular area, that I'm not sure if I could entrust my medical situation. In your particular case, Tonya, I'm not sure if I could entrust my medical situation to this quote unquote young girl, or I'm not sure if this woman would be able to attend to my particular needs. And you're right, those are some of the barriers that we continue to have to address, to face, and you do have to to break that barrier. You do have to say, well, at some point you just have to stop. How long am I going to be on this continual treadmill of proving myself over and over? So I really get where you're coming from, and it actually leads into, it's in line with a question that we have received in terms of, is it more challenging for women in the entrepreneurial space in sport as an industry? Do you think so? And maybe Shanice, I could ask you to respond to that question, or to comment on some of what Tonya has talked about in terms of her own experience.
Definitely. With my massage therapy business, I face a lot of challenges being a woman. Of course, I would have to deal with men, and I don't think some men respect women, especially in that field. I am a professional massage therapist, and I think when they hear massage therapy, they go elsewhere, and they kind of come off as being sleazy and not very professional, and that's something I deal with a lot with men. And I don't think they respect the fact that this is a woman and she's here to do a particular job and nothing else, right? And that to me, that's my biggest challenge when it comes to that.
Yeah, I could see that. Chantal, have you had to, I mean, I know your particular area, you are focused on women in health and fitness and wellness. So maybe it has been, maybe the experience has been less so. I might imagine. But tell us if could you talk to us a little bit about whether you've had any of those kind of similar experiences and what you've done to be able to handle it, or to address it?
Yeah, I too have had those similar experiences. And I know Tonya, Shanice as well, you're going to have a really hard time in the field, not just because you're a woman, but because you're an attractive woman. I have found in my industry, working out on the field in terms of events, etc., if you're a woman, but you more look rough or tomboyish, etc., they tend to bring you in a little bit faster than the girl who has on the makeup and the eyelashes, etc. They're like, what do you know about sport, or what contribution do you have to give? Early on, when I was starting this business, I read a book by Seth Godin, and there was a comment that said the best way to complain is to create. It's part of the reason why I went off and started my own venture in terms of 5K events, etc., instead of trying to fit into everybody's system, because I knew I had the talent, I knew I could do the work. And, now proving, not just talking about it, but actually putting, some action behind my words, and now coming in second is like, people are like, okay, she did this in 2 years' time. The organization that is first has been around for 30-something years. The organizations that are under her have also been around for 30-something years. How did this girl do this in 2 years? And, people are now starting to take notice. So sometimes instead of, just complaining and trying to push back on the system, just kind of leave them where they are and go and create your own system and let them see.
Yeah. I think those are, really great words of advice. And it also connects, with what Tonya had been saying earlier, that, you stop, at some point, you just stop having to prove yourself over and over. You've done that. Your credentials must speak for itself. Your achievements must speak for themselves. Your professional approach must also speak for itself. And I think once you live in that comfortable space, that confident space, and confidence was a running theme throughout a lot of our previous panels. A lot of the women in various areas talked about that confidence space. I think that confidence is important. It's critical for us as women. We received a question, just a question from from an audience member, and I think as we're talking on this theme, it's also important to add: do you believe in, or have you had to give, let's say, have you had to offer your services for free as you've been on the trek of building your business, and whether is that something that you would advocate? I mean, for my own self, I have been told by other entrepreneurs that's a slippery slope. You start there and you struggle you can struggle because people get an expectation. But on the other side, if you're building a clientele, how do you walk that tightrope? Tonya, I don't know if you want to kind of take that question on.
Yeah, sure. So I've worked for free a lot, and my advice in terms of working for free would be this: if it's helping you and it's benefiting you in terms of educating you and making you a better professional in whatever field you are, then by all means do it. If it's under the guidance of somebody who's better than you, who has years of experience, then by all means do it. But there comes a point where you need to balance the fact that you need to support yourself and live and make a business out of this, and helping and giving back. I got to a point where I was working for free mostly. It was just free. And then when my bills came, I couldn't afford to pay a lot of things. So I decided at that point, which was far too late. And the reason I'm making the point is because I'm saying start to value yourself from before it goes too far. So start to hit boundaries and say, you know what, I can discount this for you. So maybe, you know what,
because you can't afford, so maybe I can do 20% because of XYZ. And in this situation, maybe you can give me 50%. But you need to set what your fee is. You need to say my fee, let's say, for example, my fee is $500 for this, whatever you're requesting. My fee is $500 for this. And you need to put that on the table, and you need to put that on paper, and you need to stand by that. And as you go on, you could say, okay, I could take 20% today. I could take 40% tomorrow. I could take whatever. But if you don't put a value on yourself, nobody's going to do it for you. Absolutely no one. Even the most caring employers are not going to do it for you. So you have to at some point say, okay, you know what, I've learned enough. I'm not perfect because we're always in a growing stage, but I've learned enough where my value is now this, and I'm not going to stand for anything less. And of course, you have to give back as well. You have to get to the point where you're like, you know what, this team really is struggling and I'm going to help them. But that is going to be the odd situation and the odd time. But you still need to know what you're giving them for free. And if you don't know, nobody's going to know.
I think, you know, that cut to the chase, that is spot on. Chantal, you know, in your community, I would imagine that because you have positioned your business as trying to, you know, as working with the community to improve, you've probably had some of those experiences. Has it been, as Tonya has outlined, how have you been able to treat with some of those questions when they come?
So I'm a straight shooter. There is volunteerism. There are things that, you know, I would go and do for free, you know, whether it be for marketing purposes, etc. Then there's charity. There are things that I am willing to sponsor and contribute, you know, my time, my energy, etc. And then there's work. When there's work, and that's my business, how I pay my bills and support my family, there's no negotiation. My fee is my fee. I am a professional. I studied for a reason. You know, I'm trying to give the best service possible to you. And in order to do that, you know, it's going to cost something. So there are clear demarcations so that people know, you know, where they stand with me on certain things.
Yeah. And I think fair enough, you know. Shanice, have you had to manage that, you know, walk that road where, okay, you know, I can't do it for free anymore. I can't, you know, I can help you, but, you know, helping comes even at a price. How have you dealt with that?
Yes, I have been down that road. I fully endorse what Chantal just said. However, for me, I like working, and I don't want to say working for free. I should say volunteering. Yes, I would do certain things for free. I don't know. I guess it's something about myself. I feel like, you know, I underprice myself, or I undervalue my work, and that's where I would give a lot of my time for free. And I now have to deal with the paying of the bills and whatnot. I'm still in the process of trying to value my work and my time a lot more, because I know I undersell, I undervalue, and that is a big problem there. So it's all a learning process, and Chantal just spoke and she gave me a lot of hope because I like how she spoke, and, you know, I think I need to get that in me.
Well, I think you all need to, you know, it may be good for you all to keep having discussions even after this panel, because, yeah, it is important to sort of set your boundaries and to understand what your value is. Like, you know, like Chantal, like Tonya, you know, you studied, you got your credentials, and so you know what you're doing. You know, we've kind of touched on this in different ways throughout the conversation. This question of how you've been able to, how you've had to manage your business and maybe do things differently during the pandemic, you know, as we've gone through COVID-19. And I'm wondering, you know, in terms of your own mental health and managing that mental health, the reality of having to work continuously, whether you're like you're like Tonya and you're working in that space, or just be busy and continue to work so that you can keep your business operational. How have you all found that nexus or found that space where you've been able to manage your mental health more effectively or better, so that there's a level of calm and sanity, even if it isn't your personal space, your personal time. What are some of the things that have helped you manage through that? Shanice, maybe we could start with you.
Overwhelming at times, very much overwhelming. Trust me when I say I cry a lot, and it takes a toll on your mental. It really does. However, I know God and I talk to God a lot. I really kind of spend some time with Him, even when I feel like I'm going crazy and I want to pull my hair out. I think crying and talking to Him and then crying again kind of helps, as well as I talk to myself. I am a person, Shanice. Organize yourself. I talk to myself. I know a lot of people will say only crazy people do that, but I am a crazy person. I talk to myself all day, every day. Yeah, as well as that support system, the support system that I have in place. If I have anything going wrong and I need some kind of support, I go to them. Like to my mother, my sister, my significant other. They are the persons that really, as I said before, keep me sane. And it just knowing that you put so much effort into building a business, building a brand, you just don't want to give up on it. So you need to keep a strong mental and have persons there for you at all times.
Yeah, yeah. Chantal, where do you go um to to reset? How do you find that center, that calm, that space where you can think and maybe strategize more, and all of those things? How do you manage your mental health?
So, firstly, I want to say a lot of people are talking about mental health with regards to COVID, but as entrepreneurs and small business owners, I think outside of COVID, mental health has always been an issue, you know. So, for me, focus and pace has definitely been the name of the game for the long haul. I have actually carved out a space in my house where I can go and decompress. I also use exercise as a way to decompress. I don't know, for persons who are spiritual as well, you know, God is the source. You kind of have to, talk to Him. Sometimes it's just you and Him going down the road, regardless of, yes, you have your network with your friends and your business, business connections, etc. Sometimes it really is you and God. I have actually mandated rest days for myself. So I give myself 2 rest days a week. And I know that sounds odd. People will say, yeah, Saturday, Sunday, duh, everybody has that. But when you work in sport, Saturday and Sundays can be business days. So
Yes.
it's not just saying, you have the weekend. We don't have the weekend necessarily, right? So I've mandated that. I've actually mandated an email policy. I actually switched off one of my phones, completely disconnected, and said, anybody who wants to contact me via email. That gives me a little more breathing room before I answer you. So those are things that I have done for myself to, keep my mental healthy, as well as I disconnect often from social media. I have my business page and then I have my personal page. I go on, I do my business work, and then I get off.
Yeah. And you have young children, so I imagine you also have to kind of
Yeah.
find time for your family as well, and also, while keeping yourself containing, a little space, being a little selfish and keeping some space for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Tonya, how do you decompress? Chantal made an excellent point that it's not just about managing mental health through COVID. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you constantly have to be thinking about that. I think in your particular case, because you are working in the environment now, it's a little more amplified for you. So I wonder, how do you manage your space?
So, mental health has been extremely difficult for me in the last 2 years, as it has been for everybody else sitting on this meeting. And I've had to make decisions. I've had to say, I've had to take my mental health by the head and say, what are you going to do to make sure that you survive this? And it took me to get into the point of, okay, what if you get COVID and die? Because the chance of me getting COVID and dying was very high at the time. And I had to face that reality. So I'm like, if I do die in the next 3 months, what do I want to leave of myself? And I'm seeing this and it's probably like, well, that sounds a little far-fetched, but it's actually a reality. It was actually a reality that a lot of us, and maybe some of people in this panel as well, have had to face. And it made me think back to, okay, so who am I and what is important to me? And I realized that I am a dancer and I love movement and I love exercise. And I just decided, and even though I've been active my entire life and I've always exercised, I found that space to make sure that I did that movement as part of who I am. So I got up every day and I did 20 minutes or maybe 5 minutes some days, depending on how late I was, to do a little bit of yoga, to breathe and to connect with myself and to connect with me. Who am I? And I started to learn a little bit more about who am I? I'm not a doctor. I'm not an athlete. I'm not any of these things. I am the person that wants to leave back that I was a good person, that I loved, that I cared, and that I shared with people. And I started to think more about just who I was and what I needed and started self-care. And self-care for me wasn't, even though I love these things, I love going to put on nice makeup, I love that kind of thing, and self-care was not that for me. Self-care was sitting down with myself and seeing, okay, how do you feel? What do you need? What do you want? And that is what my mental health journey was for me. A lot of prayers, because there was a lot of crying, a lot of waking up days and being like, I can't do this anymore. I really can't. And the big man up there is probably 3/4 of the reason that I got off my bed. And the other quarter was my belief in self. And I mean, a lot of people, I have a way that I would walk into a space and I would look like I have everything put together. So people don't believe that I don't have things put together. So they're like, all right, okay, yeah. So it's hard, it's okay, we get it. And I get this kind of fake empathy, but I have been at the bottom of the barrel, if so to speak. And I want you to believe that everybody out there has felt that way, no matter what sphere of society they've come from, no matter what they have and who they are. And if we all connect with self, then we're able to connect with each other and we're able to grow together. And that's what my mental health journey was about.
Wow. Wow. I mean, really powerful from each of you. Tanya, as you spoke there, triggered for me, and all three of you triggered for me a whole lot of things, a whole host of sort of reactions and emotions at the same time. As women, we have to hold so much together, all at the same time, and it's sometimes it's not it is not the right place or the right time. You can't fall apart because you have your children to think about, you have your family to think about, you have your career to think about, you have your business to think about, what my parents are going to say. You're just constantly in that space where you're holding a host of things together, your own little world, your own little ecosystem. So Tanya, to hear you talk about the fact that people assume that you have everything together, but inside there's a little vortex of explosions happening that you are managing. I think it's a very real space for a lot of people, and we don't always appreciate that. To hear from Shanice that there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of constantly talking to yourself like a crazy lady in wherever you are. You're not alone in that as well. We all live in that space where we that self-talk that self-talk is happening. I talk to myself a whole lot. A lot of people people who know me think I'm crazy already, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. And you know, Chantal, for you, keeping it all together and being very professional, but knowing that you have a family that you have to manage, knowing that you know you have a team, you know, of people to deliver to and a clientele and all of that. It is really it's not easy, and I really do commend the three of you and other women who may be listening who are doing it as well. I really commend you all for sharing and also for taking us through a lot of these things. We've had a great conversation, but in our last remaining moments, I want to throw it back to the three of you, and maybe if you could share one little piece of advice or one thought that you would like to leave a conversation with today, and maybe leave with our audience that you think is important. Chantal, you know, can we start with you?
Okay. I think in the realm of sport, we don't think of ourselves as innovators and creators, but we need to start thinking of ourselves as that. We need to start protecting ourselves, our work. So intellectual property is something that I really recommend for fitness and sport professionals to look into, figuring out your intellectual property strategy, taking the content that you have and finding different ways, physical and digital, to repurpose that work and, you know, monetize. I also want to say to all the women out there, it is possible to, you know, be an athlete, transition to an administrator or sport professional, and start a family as well. It is a balancing act, but like I said before, it's really about focus and pace. You know, define what success means for you, and then just pace yourself and go after that, and you'll achieve your goals bit by bit.
Thank you. Shanice, any last thoughts as we leave it?
Yes, I would like to just encourage anyone who is interested in starting a business. All you have to do is start. That's how you get into it. Just start. Don't doubt your ability. You know, sometimes you may think, well, there's a lot of people doing this, and it may not make sense that I get into the field as well, because you know it's oversaturated. There are a lot of Royal Castle, Church's Chicken, and trust me, there will be a lot more branches. So it not that doesn't stop them, right? So if you have an idea and you want to go for it, go and take the right people along with you, and you'll be good.
Yeah, just start. You're right about that. Tonya, Doc, any last words from you?
So, I mean, what Chantal and Shanice said kind of incorporated into what I was going to say. So I switched it up a little bit. And I think that what I do want to say now is that I think the most important thing that you could do for yourself is to be you. And I know it sounds simple. It sounds like, you know what, okay, I've heard this so many times. You see it written everywhere. You're like, just be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. But we spend a lot of time trying to be like other people. We see someone and we're like, I want to be like her. I want to be like him. I want to do this. And that is what prevents us from being us. The most important thing to do and the best gift you could give yourself is to be yourself and to present this person to the world, because there's nobody in these billions and billions of people in every single country that you would ever go to that is just like you. And you are a gift to this world. And if you get up and say, you know what, I am good at using my hands. I'm an athlete and I am good at organizing things. I am good at this and I'm good at that. That is how you get to the path that you're meant to be on. No other way. And if you could get anything from what I've said today, it's just, I hope that being you, because it took me a long time to be me. It took me a long time because I wanted to be the best and wanted to be everything else but myself. And I've now found that being me is the only way to be a part of this world. And I hope that everybody could find themselves on that journey.
Yes, thank you all very much. Truly wise words indeed. If you are interested in starting a business, if you're really thinking about entrepreneurship, just start. And when you do start, make sure to protect your intellectual property, protect your value. And as you go along and as you're taking care of things, just remember to always be yourself. I think some really simple but poignant closing statements. Ladies, I really want to thank you for taking the time today, for spending the time with us and having a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm really glad to have got the opportunity to get to know each of you. Dr. Tonya Welch, Chantal Ross Thomas, and Shanice Allen, it has really been a pleasure. You have kind of put the sort of crown on our panel series. The final conversation was certainly a very great conversation. As we close off our series, I really must extend special thanks to our Pink Rain sponsors, Gatorade, Ocean Spray, and Playtex, and also to thank the Honorable Minister of Minister Shampa Kaju, and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, Mrs. Angela Edwards, both of whom have walked the road with us over the last few months, as we've spoken to a lot of really interesting, vibrant, knowledgeable women about their various experiences in the area of sport and sport industry, building their careers, breaking barriers, and sort of transcending the stereotypes about women and their participation in sport. And I also want to thank our audience who joined us on each one of these panels, sent in their questions, expressed their support, demonstrated their interest. I hope that we have stimulated your thinking, stimulated a lot of what you may have thought about in the past, exploded some of the myths about women in sport, and really brought the conversation home. It has been, certainly for me personally, a tremendous journey, and I've really enjoyed every step of the way. I've met some really interesting women, some very accomplished women. Tonya, you talked about being yourself. I'm sure there are a lot of people who will say, I would like to be like this one, I would like to be like that one. So there are little things that you can take from people, while at the same time owning your own space and really owning your own personality. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone who's been watching us over these last few months, and certainly who've tuned in today, I just want to close off to say thank you. It's been a great experience. I hope you will continue to participate in the various aspects of the ministry's Pink Rain campaign, as the minister outlined earlier. And remember,